the reality is that God, who is in control of the Persian Empire from Ethiopia to India, is also in control of the United States Empire from Maine to California, Washington to Florida, even though his name doesn't appear much in our day. This is Fixed on Jesus. Welcome back to the Fixed on Jesus podcast. This is that train where we jump from the depot onto the train just to see where we're going. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you're listening, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about a series we're in the midst of here at church. We are going to be talking about the book of what, Mark?
Esther.
Okay, don't do that again.
I won't.
I don't have headphones on, but it makes my ears kind of bleed when you sing.
Yeah, we might have to re-record that.
So this is not an American Idol thing.
Good.
Because you're not a singer, and your talents lie in other places.
Maybe.
And so I am joined, as always. My name is Rich, and I'm joined by our production coordinator, Heather Corbitt.
Woo woo.
And also Mark Johnson Jr. is asking me questions, and we're having a conversation today about Esther.
Esther. Yeah. So
now let me before you have you heard of the story of Esther before? You've been a Christian not that long. Did you know about the story of Esther at all?
Prior to being a Christian, no.
And then after being a Christian, have you heard much about it?
Just read it a few times. Watched the movie on PureFlix.
What? There's a movie?
There is a movie.
Come on.
There's a movie. There's
a movie.
Do you know what PureFlix is?
I don't watch. No.
It's like Christian Netflix.
Heather says it's good.
It's like $8 a month.
Okay, so I'm not going to watch the movie before I preach the book. Just heads up. Okay. So I did not know there was a movie, but there is a book of the Bible, Mark.
Thanks.
Called Esther.
What is different about the Book of Esther?
Yeah, the Book of Esther is a different ballgame compared to, well, a lot of other books in the Bible. This is a narrative. And so a narrative is a story. And so one of the unique factors about this story is that it is not set in Jerusalem. It doesn't mention any kind of worship of God. It doesn't mention the word God. The people in this book are Jewish, but there's no sense of them carrying any kind of care for godliness. So it's a very interesting book because what we have are the people of God who were exiled, now living in Persia under, well, at this point, King Xerxes. And we have this intriguing story that happens where the whole nation of Israel in Persia is saved through the actions of a young woman named Esther. Mm-hmm. So it's different because a narrative is different than, say, one of Paul's letters. One of Paul's letters is easy to interpret because all you do is look to see what the word means when you read it, and you can say, okay, I know how to apply it, right?
Yeah.
When he says flee sexual immorality, we know, that means run the other way, right? Fast. Flee, run hard. Now, Esther, a story is very different. The way we interpret a story or a narrative in the Bible is different because in a narrative, what we have is a narrator telling us what happened. He doesn't tell us what should have happened. He doesn't tell us why it happened. He just tells us what happened. And we, as those who are interpreting the Bible, have to ask, are these good choices by the main characters? Are they bad choices? What does the rest of the Bible have to say about these choices? And what are we to take away from it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So how would you interpret a narrative?
Well, what I would do is I would read it. as I read
Like
the
step by
story,
step.
step by step. So the first thing to do,
the wiki.
the WikiLeaks. The
forgot what
first
it's
thing
called.
to do. I got to put my reading glasses on now.
Oh, those are sharp.
Thanks. The first thing we need to do is ensure that we understand and read all the details of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the story, the author gives us every detail. There is no piece of this story that is without meaning, right?
Who's
And
the
so
author?
The author, we do not know.
Okay.
We do not know who the author is. We don't have any nothing inside the text tells us that. And so what you need to do is you need to realize that, first of all, like, I'll just give you a quick overview of chapter 1. King Ahasuerus he's the king over the largest empire to date. And we have the author telling us from India to Ethiopia and over 127 different provinces. So this is a massive, massive landmass that he covers. He goes ahead and he throws a party for 180 days, and the wine flows.
That's a party.
That's a party
180 days?
180 days.
That's a rave among all raves.
I don't understand that.
That's
but
okay. I don't either anymore. I'm
yeah,
saved
okay,
now.
good. I'm not sure what that is. And so, like, they get all kinds of wine. Drinks are served in golden vessels, and everybody is just drinking and making merry. And they have
Making merit?
making merry. Have you heard of that phrase?
No.
Okay, well, look it up. And so, anyway, so a few days into this party, drunk men get together and decide that it would be a good idea to have the queen, Vashti, parade through where the men are having their party, wearing her golden crown. So the king requests her presence, and she won't come. And some people say she wouldn't come because she felt like it was beneath her station as queen to do that. Other people say, and we don't know this from the text, but other people say that she was requested to come with her crown on and only her crown. That we don't know. But what we have here is a request that she turns down. And so this king, who is ruling over the largest landmass, looks like a massive buffoon. He can't get his wife to do what he wants her to do. And so then his officials say, listen, if it gets out that your wife doesn't do what you want to do, we're going to have trouble in the land. So let's write a letter. Let's write a letter telling everybody, hey, listen, wives, you should listen to your husband, which makes it worse, right? So, like, it could have been a story nobody heard, but instead the king, as a buffoon, writes this letter so that the whole world from Ethiopia to India knows that Vashti said, you know what? I'm not going to parade in front of you and your drunk friends. Go jump in a lake.
Rebels,
But also like a fool, right? So here's this king who has a lot of power, but doesn't have a lot of brains.
Does power and brains, are they separate sometimes?
Mutually exclusive
Yes.
is the phrase.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Okay.
The people who are smart don't always have power, and the people who have power aren't always smart.
Back to what you said, I just happened to have Google opened, and I looked up Making Merry.
Making merry. What does it say?
This is the Merriam-Webster
Merriman.
Merriam.
Merriam-Webster's.
To have fun and enjoy oneself by eating, drinking, dancing, etc. They made merry throughout the night.
Exactly. So they made merry.
For
So now
180 days.
they made merry like a boss, like a whole bunch of bosses. So anyway, so what we'll do is we'll ask as we read this text, okay, whoa, what's happening here? And this is, if you read chapter 1, it doesn't seem like a very Jewish book at all. And it's not. It's Persian. So what in the world does the God of Israel have to do with this? That's why we keep reading. And we recognize that the God of Israel is not just the God of Israel. He's the God of the whole world.
Right.
And these people who are in exile are just like us. They're in exile. We're also in exile. Peter in 1 Peter chapter 1 says that we Christians are in exile. We're not home yet. And so what we're going to see as Christians living in the 21st century United States is we're going to have tips and not tricks, but tips to live in exile as faithful Christians who follow a God that is often unseen. Because like I said earlier, the word God is not in this book at all. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you look at our culture, you would think that our culture has, God's not mentioned much at all as a primary mover, as someone that anyone's looking to, but the name Jesus is often taken in vain, or, the name God is taken in vain. Aside from that, people aren't talking much about God at all. But the reality is that God, who is in control of the Persian Empire from Ethiopia to India, is also in control of the United States Empire from Maine to California, Washington to Florida, even though his name doesn't appear much in our day. So it's going to be a really timely book for us to go through as a church.
Yeah, definitely. As our culture ignores God and Jesus as the mover and shaker, as you already mentioned, I could see why one could conclude from that reading the Book of Esther doesn't mention God, doesn't seem very much like any of the other books, as you described. Is that the reason? So I was reading Systematic Theology, and it was by Wayne Grudem.
Because are there many systematic theologies?
There's very many.
Okay, there's not just one. Okay. That is a systematic. Anyway,
I was reading A Systematic
Theology by Dr. Wayne Grudem. Yes. Okay.
I got to say doctor.
No, you don't have to, but it's respectful. But anyway,
I don't want to.
What did he say? Anybody. What did he say about Esther?
He said a whole lot, but he said it was debatable if this was a book to be included in the canon.
Debatable, not that he debated it,
right,
but that other people earlier debated it.
Right, in the history of Christianity.
Correct.
Well, whether or not
Jewish history.
Yeah. If this should be included, and
yes.
they ultimately concluded that it should be. Do you think that is why that debate? Why do you think that was a debate?
Well, the debate was because these aren't two reasons. One, the name God's not in this book.
Right.
That's
the obvious one.
That's not typical of the Old Testament. If you read the Old Testament, yes. Okay. If you read the Old Testament, you're going to see God all over the place, right? But not in Esther. Secondly, Mordecai and Esther are not exactly wonderful heroes. Like think about Daniel and his friends. When they're taken into the king's charge, they ask not to eat meat that was unclean. Veggies. Esther makes no requests of that.
Right.
Not only that, the way that she auditioned to be the king's wife.
Seduction.
It was spending the night with him. And so, again, not exactly how we would say, hey, listen, daughters, go and do likewise. We wouldn't. That's not how we think about it. Mordecai's name is derived from Marduk, the chief god of the day. So these are some compromised characters. Now, they have their moments.
Yeah.
And they're like us. We fail, they failed.
Mm-hmm.
We have our moments and we fall on our face. And so living as an exile is hard, and they prove it to us along the way. And we'll see that as we track along with Esther and Mordecai and Haman and the whole cast of characters from this book.
Love that. So that'll pretty much wrap up our talk about Esther. We look forward to you catching the next episode. If you have any questions about Esther, tune in to our sermons here at Center Church, but also reach out to us at production at Center Gilbert. Thank you for listening. Please share this with a friend. And we also are accepting topic recommendations or questions about any other topics that you heard from us. Thank you so much, and God bless.
See you later.